Commander Hyun-woo stood in the observation deck of the Valtrine border station, staring at the holographic display that showed the vast emptiness of space. For 12 years, he had commanded the Eternal Vigilance, watching over a sector that most considered punishment duty. The station monitored the quarantine zone around a small blue planet called Earth, home to a primitive species that had barely learned to leave their own atmosphere. Lieutenant Myri walked up beside him, carrying a data tablet. Her expression was troubled, which was unusual. In all their years serving together, Myri rarely showed concern. She was efficient, calm, and entirely professional. But, today, something had changed. "Commander, I need to show you something," she said quietly. Hyun-woo took the tablet from her hands. The data showed signal monitoring from Earth over the past 6 months. Or rather, it showed the absence of signals. The thousands of radio transmissions that once filled the space around the planet had simply stopped. No communications. No satellite activity. No signs of the bustling civilization that had existed just months ago. "When did this start?" Hyun-woo asked. 6 months ago. Gradually at first, then, all at once. 3 months ago, everything went dark, Myri replied. Hyun-woo felt a chill run down his spine. In his experience, when a planet went silent, it meant one of two things: the civilization had destroyed itself, or something had destroyed them. He immediately sent a report to High Command, following protocol. The response came back within hours, and it was dismissive. Probable self-destruction through warfare or environmental collapse. Continue monitoring. No action required. Hyun-woo wasn't satisfied with that answer, but he had his orders. Days turned into weeks, and the silence from Earth continued. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The humans had been warned 50 years ago, develop faster-than-light travel without permission, and the Valtrine Empire would destroy them. The humans had agreed to the terms. They had submitted. Why would they suddenly go silent? The Valtrine Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They were the oldest, most technologically advanced civilization known to exist. Their fleets were invincible. Their weapons could destroy planets. Every other spacefaring species in the galaxy either served the Empire or stayed hidden in fear. The Empire maintained control through a simple policy: any species that developed FTL technology without permission was immediately eliminated. This prevented any potential rivals from emerging. 50 years ago, when Earth had launched its first crewed satellites, the Empire had noticed. They sent a warning probe to Earth, containing a simple message in every human language: stay on your planet, develop no faster-than-light technology, and you will be allowed to live. The humans had replied with acceptance. They understood their place in the universe. Or so the Empire believed. Hyun-woo had read the reports from that time. Humans were interesting, in an anthropological sense. They were violent, divided, and constantly fighting among themselves. Their technology was centuries behind the Empire's. They had nuclear weapons but hadn't even mastered fusion power. They were no threat. Monitoring them was considered the most boring assignment in the Valtrine fleet. But, now, that boring assignment felt different. The silence bothered him. 2 months after his initial report, the sensors detected something. Myri rushed to his quarters in the middle of the sleep cycle, her face pale. "Commander, you need to see this now," she said urgently. Hyun-woo followed her to the command center. The sensor technician, a young officer named Taeyong who had just been assigned to the station, was frantically working at his console. On the main display, a single contact appeared. A ship, emerging from the darkness beyond Earth's solar system. "How far out?" Hyun-woo demanded. "It just appeared, sir. No jump signature, no energy buildup. It was just there," Taeyong said, his voice shaking slightly. Hyun-woo studied the display. The ship's velocity was increasing rapidly. Too rapidly. He checked the numbers twice, then, a third time. The ship was accelerating to speeds that should be impossible. Faster than any Valtrine ship could manage. Faster than the laws of physics should allow. Run a full diagnostic on the sensors. This has to be an error, Hyun-woo ordered. Taeyong worked quickly, running every test protocol. Each test came back the same. The sensors were functioning perfectly. The ship was real, and it was moving at impossible speeds. Bring up the silhouette analysis, Myri said. The computer processed the visual data and displayed a three-dimensional model of the approaching ship. It was unlike anything in the Empire's vast database. The design was sleek, angular, covered in strange panels that seemed to absorb sensor readings. No visible weapons. No recognizable propulsion system. The ship looked almost organic in some ways, as if it had been grown rather than built. Could it be a Valtrine ship? Maybe a new design we haven't been briefed on. Taeyong suggested hopefully. Hyun-woo shook his head. No. Our ships all have standard identifiers. This has nothing. And, besides, we don't have technology that can move like that. A terrible thought occurred to him. He pulled up the old reports from 50 years ago, the ones detailing Earth's technological level. He compared them to the ship on his screen. The proportions were different, the technology obviously far more advanced, but there was something about the design philosophy that seemed familiar. Human spacecraft had always been functional, almost brutally practical. This ship had that same quality, despite its obvious sophistication. Run an origin trajectory analysis, Hyun-woo ordered. The computer traced the ship's path backward through space. The result appeared on the screen, and Hyun-woo felt his blood turn to ice. The trajectory pointed directly to Earth's solar system. Impossible, he whispered. Could that really be a human ship? Myri stared at the display, her face showing the same disbelief that Hyun-woo felt. Sir, humans couldn't have developed this. It's been 50 years. Even if they focused every resource on technological advancement, they couldn't have gone from primitive spaceflight to this. It would take centuries. Maybe millennia. Then, where did this ship come from? Hyun-woo asked. No one had an answer. The ship continued its approach, crossing distances that should take weeks in mere hours. It didn't respond to hails. It didn't slow down. It simply moved through space with purpose and confidence, heading deeper into the galaxy. Hyun-woo sent an urgent report to High Command, flagged with maximum priority. This time, they couldn't dismiss it. This time, they would have to pay attention. Because if that ship really was human, then, everything the Empire believed about humanity was wrong. And, if they were wrong about humanity, then, the entire foundation of the Empire's control over the galaxy was at risk. The ship passed the border station without acknowledging its existence. It was heading toward the core worlds, toward the heart of Valtrine space. And, Hyun-woo could do nothing but watch and wait for orders that he knew would come too late. Something had changed in the galaxy. The silence from Earth hadn't been the end of humanity. It had been preparation. And, now, whatever humans had been preparing for was about to begin. Admiral Jaiwan received the emergency summons while she was reviewing tactical exercises with her fleet. The Third Fleet was stationed in the inner territories, far from any border conflicts. They hadn't seen real combat in decades. Most of her crew considered their posting a comfortable retirement assignment before moving up to administrative positions. The message from High Command was brief but alarming. An unidentified vessel had entered Valtrine space and was refusing to respond to communications. The ship's origin was suspected to be from the quarantined human world. Admiral Jaiwan was to intercept with whatever force she deemed necessary and neutralize the threat if it proved hostile. Jaiwan assembled 40 warships for the intercept mission. It seemed like overkill for a single vessel, but she hadn't survived 30 years in the Valtrine military by being careless. Her tactical officer, Ensign Taeyang, had just transferred to the flagship after serving at a border station. He was young, ambitious, and eager to prove himself worthy of serving on a fleet flagship. "Admiral, surely 40 ships is excessive for one contact?" Taeyang asked as they prepared to depart. Jaiwan studied the data packet that Commander Hyunwoo had transmitted. The ship's speed. Its unusual design. The fact that it had somehow appeared without any jump signature. Something about this situation made her deeply uneasy. "When something moves faster than physics should allow, you don't take chances," she replied. The Third Fleet moved into position along the projected path of the unknown vessel. They didn't have to wait long. The ship appeared exactly where Jaiwan's calculations predicted, dropping out of whatever impossible drive system it used with perfect precision. It hung in space, seemingly waiting for them. Up close, the ship was even stranger than the sensor reading suggested. It was perhaps 1/5 the size of a Valtrine dreadnought, but its design spoke of sophistication that made Jaiwan uncomfortable. The hull seemed to shift slightly, as if the surface was somehow alive or reactive. No visible weapons ports. No obvious weak points. It was as if someone had taken every principle of starship design that the Empire had perfected over millennia and simply ignored them all. "Open all channels. Standard contact protocols," Jaiwan ordered. The communications officer worked her console. "All frequencies open, Admiral. Broadcasting in standard galactic common and all major languages." Silence. The human ship, if that's what it truly was, gave no response. "Fire a warning shot. One plasma bolt, low power, across their bow. Make sure it's clear we're not trying to hit them, just get their attention," Jaiwan commanded. The tactical officer locked onto a point in space 50 kilometers ahead of the unknown vessel. The flagship's main plasma cannon charged and fired. The bolt of superheated energy streaked through space, bright enough to be visible even in the darkness. Then, something impossible happened. The plasma bolt simply stopped. It froze in space, hanging there as if time itself had paused. Taeyang gasped audibly. Other officers stared at their screens in disbelief. The energy that should have dispersed harmlessly simply hovered in space for 3 full seconds, then scattered into harmless particles. "What kind of defensive system can do that?" Jaiwan said quietly. Before anyone could answer, every communication screen on the flagship activated simultaneously. The image showed a human male, sitting in what appeared to be a command chair. He looked young by human standards, perhaps in his 30s. His uniform was dark, practical, with no obvious rank insignia. Behind him, Jaiwan could see other humans working at stations that looked nothing like Valtrine technology. The human spoke, and his words came through in perfect Valtrine language, with no accent or translation delay. "This is Captain Doyen of the Terran expeditionary ship Defiant Promise. We received your message 50 years ago. We considered it carefully. We've decided to decline your terms." Jaiwan felt her chest tighten. The way he spoke, the casual confidence in his voice, the fact that he was speaking perfect Valtrine, this wasn't a primitive species making first contact. This was something else entirely. "I am Admiral Jaiwan of the Valtrine Imperial Third Fleet. You have entered restricted space without authorization. Explain how your species developed this technology. Explain where you have been for the past 6 months. Explain why we should not consider you a hostile threat," she demanded. Doyen smiled slightly. It wasn't a warm smile. "Those are reasonable questions, Admiral. Here's what I can tell you. 50 years ago, your empire told humanity to stay in our corner of space or be destroyed. You told us we were too primitive to join the galactic community. You told us our only choice was submission." He leaned forward in his chair. We chose differently. We chose survival. We chose progress. As for where we've been busy. That's not an answer, Jaiwan said. It's the only answer you're getting today, Doyen replied. We're not here to invade your territory or attack your people. We're here to make it clear that humanity will no longer accept your restrictions. We will travel where we choose. We will make contact with whoever we choose. We will take our place in the galaxy, with or without your permission. Taeyeon looked at Jaiwan with alarm. Admiral, this is a direct challenge to Imperial authority. We have to respond. Jaiwan knew he was right, but something told her that responding with force would be a mistake. Captain Doyen, you must understand that what you're proposing is not possible. The Empire maintains its quarantine protocols for the safety and stability of all civilizations. If we allowed every species to develop FTL technology without oversight, the galaxy would descend into chaos. That's the story you tell yourselves, Doyen said. But, we've done our research over the past 50 years. We know about the 17 species your empire eliminated for the crime of reaching for the stars. We know about the civilizations you've suppressed, the technology you've kept hidden, the lies you've spread to maintain your control. He stood up, and Jaiwan could see that his entire crew was watching the conversation. The age of the Valtrine Empire is ending, Admiral. Not because we're going to destroy you. But, because we're going to show everyone else that your power isn't absolute. If you leave now, we will pursue, Jaiwan said. The full might of the Imperial fleet will hunt you down. You cannot hide from us. We're not going to hide, Doyen replied. We're going to build alliances. We're going to share knowledge. We're going to do what your empire should have done thousands of years ago, help other species reach their potential instead of crushing them. The screen flickered, and Jaiwan realized that the defiant promise was preparing to jump. Wait. We're not finished. Yes, we are, Doyen interrupted. For now. But, we'll be seeing you again, Admiral. You and the rest of your empire. The human ship vanished. Not with the standard jump signature that left traceable energy residue, but with a clean disappearance that left no trail. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Jaiwan's sensor officers scrambled to track it, but found nothing. Admiral, they've left something behind, the communications officer reported. It's a data packet, compressed and encoded. But it's using our own encryption standards. They want us to read it. Decrypt it and display it, Jaiwan ordered. The data appeared on the main screen. It contained coordinates for 12 locations spread across Valtrine space. Each location was a colony world, populated and defended. Beneath the coordinates was a simple message in multiple languages. To the Valtrine Empire, we will be making contact with the other civilizations you have suppressed. We will be offering them the same choice you denied us. We suggest you prepare for a new reality. Humanity is no longer asking for permission. We're taking our place in the galaxy. What happens next depends on how you respond. Choose wisely. Taeyeon looked at the coordinates with growing horror. Admiral, if they can appear and disappear like that, if their defenses can stop our weapons, they could hit any of these worlds before we could respond. Jaiwan studied the message and felt a cold certainty settle over her. This wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. Humanity had just announced that they were a galactic power, and they'd done it in a way that made it clear they had the technology to back up that claim. Send everything we have to High Command. Full sensor logs, communication records, everything, she ordered. And, someone get me a direct line to the Imperial Council. They need to know that the galaxy just changed. High Chancellor Salmon sat in the emergency session of the Imperial Council, listening to Admiral Jaiwan's report for the third time. Around the circular chamber, the most powerful figures in the Valtrine Empire shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The holographic display showed the sensor footage of the human ship, its impossible movement, its casual dismissal of Valtrine weapons. "This cannot be real," Council Member Kyung-soo said. "Humans were barely capable of reaching their own moon 50 years ago. This is impossible." Salmon wished she could agree. But, the evidence was undeniable. 3 more human ships had been detected across the galaxy in the past week. None of them attacked. Instead, they were making contact with other species, appearing near independent civilizations that the Empire had warned to remain primitive. The humans were spreading like a plague, and, worse, they were spreading ideas. "Bring in Dr. Juno," Salmon ordered. The chamber doors opened, and Dr. Juno entered. He was the Empire's leading expert on alien technology, a scientist who had spent his entire life studying the technological development of other species. He looked exhausted, as if he hadn't slept in days. "Chancellor, Council members," Juno said, bowing slightly. "I've completed my analysis of the sensor data from Admiral Jaiwan's encounter." "Tell us this is a hoax," Kyung-soo demanded. "Tell us this is some kind of elaborate trick." Juno shook his head slowly. "I wish I could. But, the data is genuine. What you're seeing is real technology, operating on principles that we don't fully understand. The human ship didn't just match our capabilities. It exceeded them. Significantly." Salmon felt her stomach sink. "Explain." Juno activated his own display, showing technical readouts that made little sense even to the trained military officers present. The propulsion system appears to use quantum folding rather than traditional jump drives. Instead of creating a tunnel through space, it's somehow manipulating the fabric of space itself. The defensive system that stopped the plasma bolt isn't a shield in any conventional sense. It's a localized time dilation field. They slowed time around the incoming projectile until it was harmless. "That's theoretical technology," another council member protested. "Our own scientists have said such things are impossible." "Clearly, we were wrong," Juno replied quietly. "But, there's more. The human ship's computational systems are far beyond ours. They're using neural network processing, organic computers that can adapt and learn in real time. Their materials science is decades ahead. Their energy generation methods are more efficient than anything we've developed." The chamber fell silent. Salmon looked around at the faces of the council members and saw fear in their eyes. The Valtrine Empire had ruled for 3,000 years because they were the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. If humanity had surpassed them in just 50 years, everything they believed was threatened. "How?" Salmon asked. "How could they advance so quickly?" "I don't know," Juno admitted. "It shouldn't be possible. Unless what?" Salmon pressed. "Unless they were lying about their capabilities 50 years ago. Or unless they devoted their entire civilization to technological advancement in a way we've never seen. Or..." Juno hesitated, then continued, "Or unless humanity is fundamentally different from other species in ways we don't understand." More reports came in over the following days, each one more disturbing than the last. A human diplomatic vessel had appeared at the KRYLL Confederacy, a collection of independent worlds that had resisted joining the Empire. The humans offered technology sharing and mutual defense. The KRYLL were listening. Another human ship visited the Moth Collective, a species that communicated through chemical signals and had been judged too primitive for space travel by imperial standards. The humans provided translation technology that allowed real-time communication for the first time. The Moth were grateful. Everywhere humans appeared, they were building alliances, sharing knowledge, and undermining imperial authority. But, they weren't invading. They weren't conquering. They were doing something far more dangerous. They were offering freedom. Salmon authorized a covert mission to Earth's solar system. If humanity had built this technology somewhere, there would be evidence. Massive shipyards, research facilities, training centers. The spy ships would find them and report back. The mission returned 3 weeks later. The commander of the spy team, an intelligence officer named Hannah, delivered her report in person. Her hands shook as she activated the holographic display. "Chancellor, what we found, it's not what we expected," Hannah said. The images showed Earth's solar system, but it was almost unrecognizable from the reports of 50 years ago. Earth itself was nearly empty. The great cities that had covered its surface were gone, dismantled down to their foundations. The oceans were pristine. The atmosphere was clearing. Where did they go? Salmon asked. Everywhere, Hannah replied. She expanded the view to show the rest of the solar system. Massive structures orbited every planet, every moon, every significant asteroid. They evacuated their homeworld and spread throughout their solar system. Mars has been terraformed. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn have been converted into habitats. Even the asteroid belt has been turned into industrial complexes. The images showed construction on a scale that seemed impossible. Entire moons hollowed out and converted into shipyards. Planetary surfaces covered with solar collectors and manufacturing facilities. Space stations larger than Valtrine dreadnoughts, serving as population centers. 10 billion humans, Hannah continued. That's their estimated population. They scattered. They hid. And they built. For 50 years, every human alive devoted themselves to a single purpose: survival through advancement. Salmon stared at the images, trying to comprehend what she was seeing. They didn't submit. They never intended to submit. The silence wasn't surrender. It was preparation. Yes, Chancellor, Hannah confirmed. We intercepted some of their internal communications. 50 years ago, when they received our ultimatum, humanity held a global vote. Every nation, every culture, every human had a choice: submit to our terms or fight for their future. They chose to fight. But they were smart enough to know they couldn't win a direct confrontation. So they disappeared. They went dark. They made us think they were no threat. Kyung-soo stood up, his face red with anger. They deceived us. They violated the terms of the quarantine. This is grounds for immediate military action. With what? Juno asked quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. With what will we take military action? Their ships are faster than ours. Their defenses are superior. Their technology is beyond ours. Even if we mobilize the entire Imperial fleet, we don't know where all their colonies are. We don't know how many ships they have. We don't even know what weapons they possess. He's right, Hannah added. In our surveillance, we identified at least 40 human vessels, each one comparable to the Defiant Promise. But we also detected construction bays that could hold hundreds more. They've been building for 50 years. They could have a fleet larger than ours. Salmon felt the weight of the situation crushing down on her. For 3,000 years, the Empire had maintained control through fear and technological superiority. Now, a species they had dismissed as primitive had not only matched them but potentially surpassed them. And, worse, humanity wasn't seeking to conquer the Empire. They were seeking to dismantle it by offering other species what the Empire had denied them: the chance to reach their full potential. What did we create? Salmon whispered. By threatening them, by trying to keep them contained, what did we force them to become? No one had an answer. But, as reports continued to flow in from across the galaxy, as more species began to openly question Imperial authority, as human ships appeared in system after system, one thing became clear: the galaxy was changing. The age of Valtrine dominance was ending. And humanity had barely begun to show what they were truly capable of. Fleet Admiral Kyung-soo stood before the assembled military commanders, his jaw set with determination. The holographic star map behind him showed the spread of human contacts across the galaxy. Red markers indicated confirmed human ship sightings. Yellow markers showed systems where human influence was suspected. There were hundreds of them now, spreading like a virus through space. "The solution is simple," Kyung-soo said, his voice hard. "We find their main colonies. We mobilize every ship in the Imperial fleet. And we destroy them before they become an existential threat to everything we've built." Several commanders nodded in agreement. They were military officers, trained to respond to threats with overwhelming force. That's how the Empire had maintained control for millennia. When a problem emerged, you destroyed it completely. Leave no survivors. Leave no chance for resistance. But, Diplomatic Minister Hannah stood up from her seat, her expression troubled. She was younger than most in the room, having risen quickly through the diplomatic corps through skill and insight rather than years of service. She had spent the past month studying every piece of information available about humanity, and what she had learned terrified her. "With respect, Admiral, that approach would be catastrophic," Hannah said. Kyung-soo turned to her, irritation clear on his face. "Minister, this is a military matter." "No, it's a survival matter," Hannah replied firmly. She activated her own display, showing data that made several commanders shift uncomfortably. "I've been studying human history. What we've learned about them from their own transmissions and databases. And I need you all to understand something crucial: humanity is not like other species we've encountered." She pulled up historical records from Earth. Images of ancient wars, medieval conflicts, industrial age battles, nuclear weapons, world wars that consumed entire continents. This species has been fighting for its entire existence. Not just against each other, but against their own planet. Ice ages. Plagues that killed millions. Extinction-level disasters. They survived all of it through adaptation and sheer stubborn refusal to give up. "Every species has wars," Kyung-soo said dismissively. "Not like this," Hannah countered. "Most species develop space travel and, then, join the galactic community, learning from others. Humans develop everything themselves, in isolation, through constant conflict and competition. Look at their technological progression. They went from primitive agriculture to splitting the atom in just 10,000 years. They went from first flight to landing on their moon in 66 years. When we threatened them 50 years ago, they were already on the verge of fusion power and basic genetic engineering." She pulled up more recent data. "And here's what should worry us: their response to our threat wasn't to surrender or to fight immediately. It was to evacuate their entire homeworld, scatter their population, and dedicate every resource to advancement. Do you understand what that means? 10 billion individuals, working together toward a single goal for 50 years. No civilization we know of has ever demonstrated that level of coordination and sacrifice." Juno, who had been invited to the meeting as a technical advisor, stood up to support Hannah's argument. "She's right. I've analyzed their technological development. It's not just that they advanced quickly. It's that they did it efficiently. Every human facility we've observed has been dedicated to either research, production, or training. They eliminated waste. They shared every discovery instantly across their entire civilization. While we've relied on our established technology and slow bureaucratic advancement, they've been innovating at a pace that shouldn't be possible. Then, we need to strike before they get any stronger," Kyung-soo insisted. "You're not listening," Hannah said, her voice rising. "If we attack humanity now, we won't destroy them. We'll unite them against us. And, here's what you need to understand about human warfare: they don't fight clean. They don't follow rules of engagement. They fight to win, no matter the cost." She pulled up translations of human military history. Accounts of total war, of scorched earth policies, of tactics that other species would consider barbaric. When humans are threatened with extinction, they respond with absolute commitment to survival. They will sacrifice anything. Planets. Cities. Billions of lives. They've done it before in their own wars. What do you think they'll do if we attack their colonies? The room fell silent. Several commanders looked uncomfortable now, seeing the implications. But, there's something else, Hannah continued. Something that might be even more important. Humans have already prepared for our response. The evacuation wasn't random. They spread their population across thousands of locations. Destroying one colony won't stop them. Destroying 10 colonies won't stop them. We would have to find and destroy every single human habitat in the galaxy. And we don't even know where they all are. Juno nodded grimly. The colonies we've discovered are likely just the ones they wanted us to find. Their real population centers could be anywhere. Hidden in asteroid fields. Buried deep in hostile environments. Scattered across uninhabited systems. They've had 50 years to hide, and they've shown they're very good at it. Kyungsu's confidence was beginning to waver. Then, what do you suggest? We can't just allow them to undermine imperial authority. They're already doing that, Hannah said. And, it's working. Do you know why? Because they're offering other species something the Empire never did, a choice. They're not invading. They're not conquering. They're building alliances based on mutual benefit. She pulled up the latest intelligence reports. The KRYLL Confederacy has signed a technology-sharing agreement with humanity. The Moth Collective has opened diplomatic relations. 3 former Imperial client species have declared independence, citing human support. And, it's not just small civilizations. We've intercepted communications suggesting that even some of our own colony worlds are questioning whether the Empire serves their interests. Treason, Kyungsu muttered. Reality, Hannah corrected. For 3,000 years, the Empire has ruled through fear and technological superiority. Now there's another option. A species offering technology, protection, and freedom instead of submission and control. Why wouldn't others take that deal? Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Captain Doyen continued his mission. The Defiant Promise appeared at the edge of the Talvan system, home to a species that had been prohibited from developing advanced spaceflight by imperial decree. The Talvan were an aquatic species, highly intelligent but trapped on their water world by Valtrine restrictions. Doyen's communications officer, a young woman named Bora, opened a channel to the planet. This is the Terran expeditionary ship Defiant Promise. We come in peace and friendship. We'd like to speak with your leaders about humanity's place in the galaxy, and about what that might mean for your people. The response came quickly. The Talvan had been monitoring human activities for weeks, hoping for exactly this contact. Within hours, formal communications were established. Within days, the Talvan were receiving technical specifications for spacecraft adapted to their aquatic nature. Within weeks, the first Talvan ship would be under construction. And, it was happening everywhere. Dozens of species. Hundreds of worlds. The Free Worlds Alliance was growing, bound not by fear but by common interest. Humanity wasn't trying to replace the Empire. They were trying to make it irrelevant. Back at the Eternal Vigilance border station, Commander Hyun-woo received an unexpected transmission. It was marked for his eyes only, encrypted with codes that shouldn't exist. When he decrypted it, he found a message from Commander Bora of the human vessel Resolute Dawn. Commander Hyun-woo, we've been monitoring your reports to High Command. We know you've been trying to warn them about us. We respect that. You're doing your job, protecting your people. But, we want you to know, we're not your enemy. The empire you serve has ruled through oppression for 3,000 years. They've destroyed civilizations. They've kept entire species in chains. You know this is true. You've seen the reports, even if you weren't allowed to question them. The message continued. We're offering you a choice. The same choice we're offering everyone. Continue serving an empire built on fear, or join us in building something better. A coalition of equals. Free exchange of ideas. No species left behind. We're not asking you to betray your people. We're asking you to think about what kind of galaxy you want to live in. Hyun-woo stared at the message for a long time. Everything he had believed in was crumbling. The empire that had given his life meaning was revealed as something darker than he had allowed himself to see. And, these humans, these newcomers who shouldn't even exist, were offering an alternative. He thought about Myri, his loyal second officer. About Taeyong and the other young crew members. What kind of future did they have in an empire that was already fracturing from within? The choice was his to make. But, time was running out for everyone. The decision was made in the Imperial Council chamber after weeks of heated debate. Fleet Admiral Kyung-soo had finally convinced enough council members that military action was necessary. The Empire would mobilize its greatest fleet in history. 2,000 warships. Every available vessel from across Valtrine space. The target, the coordinates humanity had provided months ago. High Chancellor Salmon had argued against it, as had Diplomatic Minister Hannah. But, they were outvoted. The military faction insisted that showing weakness would only encourage more rebellion. They had to respond with overwhelming force, to remind the galaxy why the Valtrine Empire had ruled for 3,000 years. The fleet assembled over the course of a month. Dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, support vessels. The most powerful military force ever gathered in recorded history. Admiral Kyung-soo commanded from the flagship Imperial Dominance, a massive vessel that alone could destroy a planet. His tactical staff worked around the clock preparing combat scenarios, analyzing the human ships they had encountered, planning how to overwhelm their defenses through sheer numbers. When the fleet finally jumped to the first coordinates humanity had provided, they expected either a trap or a major human colony. What they found was neither. The system was empty. No stations. No ships. No defensive installations. Just a single human vessel hanging in space near the system's star. It was the defiant promise. Captain Doyen's ship, alone against 2,000 Valtrine warships. Kyung-soo opened a communication channel, his voice filled with triumph. Captain Doyen, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender your vessel immediately, and we may show mercy to your species. On the view screen, Doyen appeared. He was sitting casually in his command chair, looking completely unconcerned about the massive fleet surrounding him. When he smiled, Kyung-soo felt the first hint of doubt. Admiral Kyung-soo, thank you for bringing your entire fleet here. It saves us a lot of time, Doyen said calmly. This is your last warning. Surrender now, Kyung-soo demanded. Doyen's smile widened. Admiral, you still don't understand. Those coordinates we gave you months ago. They weren't our colonies. They were yours. Before Kyung-soo could respond, his communication systems lit up with emergency transmissions. 12 simultaneous reports from Valtrine colony worlds. The same 12 coordinates humanity had marked months ago. Human ships had appeared above each one, not attacking, but broadcasting. The message was the same at every world. A simple data transmission, sent to every communication device on the planet. Every computer, every screen, every network. It contained the truth about the Empire. Documentary evidence of the 17 species that had been wiped out for developing FTL technology. Records of scientific discoveries the Empire had suppressed to maintain control. Lists of civilizations kept primitive through imperial interference. The full, unedited history of 3,000 years of oppression. On the flagship bridge, Kyung-soo watched in horror as the reports came in. On every colony world, citizens were seeing the truth for the first time. Protests erupted within hours. Governments that had served the empire loyally began to question their allegiance. The careful structure of control that had held the empire together was cracking. "You've just declared war on the entire empire," Kyung-soo said to Doyen. "No," Doyen replied. "We've just given your people the truth. What they do with it is up to them. That's called freedom, Admiral. You should try it sometime." Kyung-soo gave the order to open fire. Every weapon on every ship targeted the defiant promise. Plasma cannons, missile batteries, energy beams. Enough firepower to destroy a planet, all focused on a single small ship. Nothing hit. The weapons discharged, but the defiant promise simply wasn't there anymore. It had moved, faster than sensors could track, reappearing 1,000 kilometers away. And, now, Kyung-soo realized with growing horror, the fleet was surrounded. The entire star system activated. What he had thought was empty space was actually a massive weapons platform. Humanity had built it quietly over the past months, piece by piece, hidden in the darkness. Satellites that bent light around themselves. Mines that could manipulate gravity. Energy collectors that could channel the star's power into directed beams. It wasn't just a trap. It was a demonstration. "This is what we can build when we're motivated," Doyen said. "Imagine what we can build when we're threatened. Is that really the future you want, Admiral? Because if you force us to, we will turn every star system we control into a fortress. We will build weapons you can't defend against. We will show you what total war looks like when waged by a species that has nothing left to lose." He leaned forward. "Or, you can choose differently. You can choose to join us in building something better. A galaxy where species work together instead of one dominating all others. Where knowledge is shared instead of hoarded. Where everyone has a chance to reach their potential. The Empire will never surrender to primitives," Kyung-soo said, but his voice lacked conviction. "We're not asking you to surrender," Doyen replied. "We're asking you to evolve." Back on the Valtrine capital world, High Chancellor Salmon watched the situation unfold. The protests on the colony worlds were spreading to the core systems. Military units were refusing orders. Government officials were resigning. The empire that had stood for 3,000 years was collapsing not from external attack, but from internal revolution. Her communication system chimed. It was Commander Hyun-woo from the border station. "Chancellor, I need to inform you of my decision," he said formally. "I'm defecting to the Free Worlds Alliance. So is my entire crew. We can no longer serve an empire built on lies and oppression." "I'm sorry." Salmon wasn't angry. She was tired. "How many others, Commander?" "Hundreds so far, Chancellor. Maybe thousands by the end of the week. The truth is out, and people are making their choices." After he signed off, Salmon sat in her office and looked at the reports streaming in from across the empire. She had known, deep down, that this day would come eventually. No empire lasted forever. But, she had never imagined it would end like this, not through conquest, but through obsolescence. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Kyung-soo. "Bring the fleet home. There's nothing left to fight for. The war that everyone feared never really happened. The Valtrine Empire didn't fall to human weapons. It fell to human ideas." Within a year, most of the Empire's territory had declared independence or joined the Free Worlds Alliance. Some Valtrine worlds chose to maintain their identity and culture, now as equals rather than masters. Others joined fully with the new coalition. 5 years after the defiant promise first appeared in Valtrine space, Captain Doyen stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, humanity's new capital in neutral space. The station was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built by a dozen species working together. Ships from 100 worlds came and went freely, trading, sharing knowledge, building relationships. Dr. Juno found him there. The Valtrine scientist had defected early, using his knowledge to help integrate the flood of Valtrine refugees who chose to join the Alliance rather than cling to the old ways. "Did you ever think it would end this way?" Juno asked, looking out at the busy space traffic. Doyen smiled. "We hoped it would. We planned for the worst but hoped for the best. Humans are good at hoping. It's kept us alive through a lot of bad situations." "Your species is remarkable," Juno said. "In 50 years, you accomplished what should have taken centuries. You didn't just match the Empire. You surpassed it in every way that matters." "We had good motivation," Doyen replied. "And we had something the Empire forgot: when you threaten extinction, you give people nothing left to lose. That makes them very creative and very determined." He turned to face Juno. "But here's the thing. We didn't come to the galaxy to replace the Empire. We didn't want to be the new masters. We came because we refused to accept that submission was our only option. We came because every species deserves the chance to reach for the stars." Below them, a ship painted in Valtrine colors docked at the station. Its crew would be a mix of species now, working together as equals. The galaxy had changed in ways no one had predicted. Far beyond the core worlds, in the depths of space where no one watched, humanity's true colonies remained hidden. Hundreds of them, scattered across 1,000 systems. Self-sufficient. Defensible. Unknown to anyone outside of humanity itself. Because humans had learned the most important lesson 50 years ago, when an empire threatened their destruction: never trust that peace will last. Always be ready. Always be prepared. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again. But, more importantly, humanity would never forget what it felt like to be underestimated, to be dismissed, to be threatened with annihilation. And that memory would shape how they treated others, how they built their alliances, how they moved forward. Captain Doyen looked out at the stars and thought about the future. It would be complicated, challenging, sometimes dangerous. But it would be a future where humanity had a voice, where all species had choices, where progress was measured not in domination but in cooperation. They had come to the galaxy as refugees from a quarantined world, armed with nothing but determination and ingenuity. Now they were helping to build something that had never existed before, a true galactic community of equals. And that, Doyen thought, was worth every sacrifice humanity had made to get here.